Joining me on the programme, Joint General Secretary at the National Education Union, Kevin Courtney. Hello, Kevin. Good morning.
Morning, Vanessa.
Well, I think some people will certainly feel that this news, though unwelcome, may not be unexpected.
Well, I think it's shocking news. It's no way to get a country out of an economic decline to take money out of the pockets of public sector workers who would spend it in private sector retail and private sector hospitality and private sector hairdressers. I think it makes no sense at all. And on top of that, support staff, teachers, school leaders, head teachers, they are more stressed and more tired than they have ever been in their working lives. That's how it feels to them. I don't think they're unique. I think it's happening to other people at work at the moment. But teaching the children who are at home, teaching the children who are in school, trying to keep everything COVID secure, not knowing how to prepare children for the exams for next year. It's massively stressful and massive amounts of work. And the idea at this moment that you announce that there's going to be a pay cap or a pay limitation for them is frankly, it's astonishingly bad timing for anybody to seek to announce that.
I can't imagine any day on any occasion, post-pandemic or at any other time, any sector ever saying that this was the right day to announce a pay cap. Can you? I just can't think that you would ever join me on the programme and say, do you know, Vanessa, the situation is so grave, everything is so expensive, these are unprecedented costs that are being incurred by the government at all times, and therefore it makes perfect sense for there to be a pay cap. I just can't imagine you ever saying that, can you?
Economics and politics are linked together and they are not separate from one another. So the post-war Labour government invested massively in our National Health Service, and that was the way to get the country through. And what our government has done since 2010 is austerity, 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 hold down wages, and it hasn't worked. You have to build your way out of recessions, and taking money out of the pockets of public sector workers. What the government's going to try and do is a divide and rule thing. They're going to try and say private sector workers have had it hard, so public sector workers have to have it hard. But it's not levelling up. This is levelling down, and it won't work. It'll be worse for private sector workers. Tesco delivery drivers deserve a pay rise. Aldi delivery workers deserve a pay rise. Hairdressers deserve to have a business that's running. And if you take money out of low-paid school support staff, low-paid NHS ancillary staff, out of the pockets of prison officers, they won't be going to the hairdresser. So it makes no sense for the private sector or the public sector. Some people seem to be doing all right. The people with the PPE contracts that are getting nice deals from the government, they seem to be doing okay. But this is an attack on all working people, and we should resist it.
And how? When you say we should resist it, in what way could you possibly go about resisting it, do you think? You're not considering a strike when so many teachers have been out of the classroom for so long and have been worried, so severely worried about children and their education. This surely wouldn't be the right kind of time to even consider such a thing, would it?
Teachers are massively, they are, as I said, they're exhausted, and support staff and head teachers. Politically, we should resist it. We should be saying to our MPs, this is not right. We should be saying to those Conservative MPs in the red wall seats, this will attack public sector workers in these red wall seats. It will attack private retail in the red wall seats. We should be saying that this is the wrong way to go for our country. It makes no sense. They would have you believe that a country is like a housewife, as Margaret Thatcher said, and if you haven't got the money, then you can't spend it. And that isn't true for governments. Our government can now borrow at the lowest rates that have ever been seen, and they can use that to build their way out of this. We have so much to do to address the green crisis, the climate crisis, the Green New Deal. There is a better way than attacking the wages of ordinary people who we need to get through the pandemic. I said teachers and support staff are working so hard, but that's also true for hospital ancillary workers. Prison officers are they're doing their job in places where COVID is high and where it's frightening, and people are putting their lives on the line. This is not the time to announce a pay cut or a pay freeze.
Well, they haven't said cut. They've said cap. But you might say prices are going up, so effectively that means the same thing. You might say that, and I would understand that completely. I mean, I mean, what if I were to say, and you're a teacher and you've been busily explaining the connection between the economy and our well-being and everything else. What if I were to say, well, where is the money to come from in this depressed economy? I think we're even allowed to use the word depression because that's what we're in. Every day we hear about, high street closures. We've got people listening who are losing their jobs all of the time, restaurants and businesses that will never open up again. I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking, all of this. What if the argument is simply that there aren't the funds?
Well, just a few months ago, there was substantial economic debate that the World Bank was going to say austerity was not the way, further austerity was not the way out of this world economic crisis, that it wouldn't work on the scale that we've got. Mm-hmm. And that governments would have to print money, and they can borrow at historically low levels. And sometimes it's right to borrow. Sometimes it's right to borrow in order to buy a house and you pay back over time. And sometimes it's right to borrow in order to make your economy grow again and to do the Green New Deal that we need. And that's what we should be doing, not depressing everything, depressing things so that depressed people with depressed wages will not go to hospitality when the pandemic's over, because that's the worry, isn't it? Is that we're going to be in further lockdown because this lockdown doesn't seem to be working. They haven't got the R rate even below 1, so cases aren't falling. So these restrictions will end up going on longer. That will be so damaging to the private sector industry. We are going to need to build back out of that. And when it's over, once we've got the vaccine in place or the mass testing or whatever allows us to get out of these restrictions, people are going to have to spend. And they're going to need money in their pockets to spend for the private sector.
And I want to ask you about a story that emerged on the programme yesterday, if you don't mind, Kevin, and that was the colossal strain of the pandemic on head teachers. And we were told that a vista that we might see, should we look into a crystal ball, is that at some point in the near future there will be a mass exodus of head teachers who have just felt that the responsibility, the logistics, the attempting to do something that's actually impossible, not to mention the opening and closing of all different classes all of the time now as either a pupil, a teacher, a teaching assistant goes down with the virus or tests positive for the virus, is too much for mankind to bear, that they would just leave the profession. Are you hearing of that kind of thing yourself?
We are. The National Education Union organises all sorts of education workers, and we have lots of head teachers in membership of our union. And so we are hearing those stories from our members as well as from other head teachers. And we are hearing of huge levels of stress, the feeling of lack of support from the government. We've just completed a survey, a scientific survey, opinion poll survey of our own members. And one of the questions we asked was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed are you? And 25% of them said 10 on that scale. And so it's teachers, it's support staff, it's head teachers. They feel unsupported. They see that cases keep going up in their schools, even during this period of lockdown. The number of children with positive cases keeps going up, and then they have to manage all of the sending the children home. Then they've got to manage under close contacts, and then they've got to manage the teaching for those children at home. They have to the process of communicating with parents is extremely time-consuming and adding to massive stress. And the government hasn't let up on anything else in education. I don't know why, but they should clearly have said that Ofsted won't come in this year. They should clearly have said that we're not going to do the SATs test. Those would have been things they could have done to try and reduce some stress. They haven't done that, and head teachers feel massively unsupported. They get instructions which come very late on in the day, when they have to prepare for things. All of that is adding to the stress. And if you then get, and I don't know what Rishi Sunak is going to say about public sector pay next week, but if they do end up saying to teachers and support staff and head teachers that their pay is going to be held down, it is entirely the wrong moment to say it.
Well, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. That's Kevin Courtney, the Joint General Secretary at the National Education Union.